Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Tom LaHue, and today I just kind of want to take you behind the scenes and sort of unpack my journey with the Enneagram and how it has led me to where I am today, and what I see going forward and that kind of thing. So I realize there are going to be some people who are like, why am I watching this? And you don't have to. I mean, it's just for those people that are insiders that have been with my channel maybe for a long time, and you just kind of want to hear the backstory behind the scenes. I'm happy to just I was just thinking about it, and I was like, why don't I just tell you guys about this? Okay, so just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com, where I do offer Enneagram coaching, single appointments, all the way through my 12-week Present to Life program. And also many different classes, on-demand classes, as well as live classes that are coming up on Zoom. I would love for you to participate in those on Enneagram coaching, relationship coaching, and there's a lot of other options on there. Things that I've been interested in, and I've created courses on it. And also there's some free ebook downloads. Join my Enneagram community and receive my weekly newsletter. I won't send junk to you. I know that a lot of people do, and I'm not going to do that. I value you guys, and thank you for going with me on this journey. So let's just start at the beginning. My wife Traci is a 2-wing 1. I am a 7-wing 6 social type, and we've been in ministry for ever since we got together. We met at a Christian school. She was in 9th grade and I was in 10th grade. So we've been together a long time. We got married in 1991, and we've had 5 kids. Some of my kids have been in my videos, and now they're growing up, and that's hard for a 7, but families of their own. And we started in ministry background. We went to a Christian college in Kissimmee. It used to be called Florida Christian College, and then it merged with Johnson University. And then I did a master's degree at Lancaster Bible College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a master's degree at Louisville Bible College, and then my Master of Divinity at Liberty Theological Seminary, or Liberty University. And then in 2007, I think it was, I enrolled at Grace Theological Seminary and did a doctorate of ministry in Warsaw, Indiana, or Winona Lake, Indiana. Great schools. I've been blessed to have such great education. Part of the reason now I look back, I realize because I am a 7, I love learning, I love information, I love new experiences. I love to keep my mind revving on new ideas and to meet new people and, to have those experiences. So I get it. You can have gluttony for things, and you can have gluttony for information and for experiences as well. It's a little easier to justify when it's continuing education. And, my tri-type is 7-1-2, the teacher, also called the self-righteous airhead, which, hey, it's better than some of the other names for tri-types. But I love information, I love people, I love God, and I love, all these things together, and to help people in their journey and to understand. Now, I never did consider myself a counselor. In fact, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, if I was going to be hired and they'd say, Tom, what shortcomings do you think you have? And I would probably say, well, I don't see myself much as a counselor. And I remember feeling overwhelmed many times when I was counseling couples and they were having marriage problems. I would feel like, I don't know if I know the right answers for these people to help them in their marriage. Years ago, I went back, I ordered literally, 50, 60 books on marriage, many from a Christian background and some not. And I just read as much as I could to try to understand marriage until I landed on, a program or a formula that makes sense to me. It's one I still use today. And I feel much more equipped now to understand why marriages get into trouble and how to help those marriages come to a better place. I'm not saying that I can do magic, because I can't do magic. I wish I could. I wish I could wave a magic wand and everybody be happy and get along and treat each other nice. I wish I could do that. But I feel much more equipped now, to help people and help couples in their relationships. And then the Enneagram comes along, and it just takes it to a whole new level. So let me tell you a little bit about, how this all came about and how I got interested in the Enneagram and, where it's brought me. So years ago, several years ago, my oldest daughter, Grace, who's an 8-wing 7, and she's in many of my videos, especially early on when we were starting the channel. Grace went to a conference at a church. She went to the Next Level conference at Compassion Christian Church in Savannah, Georgia. Shout out to that great church, great ministry, great conference. And her husband, Zach, went to that conference. And that church uses the Enneagram for their staff development. And so she went to a session where they talked about the Enneagram. And she came home and she was like, Dad, you need to check out this, because she was a counseling major at Johnson University. And they use DISC a lot, and a little bit of Myers-Briggs. And I understood Myers-Briggs. I understood DISC. I understood, those systems. So I kind of got the whole personality thing. And she came home and said, Dad, you got to look at this Enneagram thing. You got to look at this Enneagram thing. And I at first, I just kind of blew it off. Like, I don't need another personality thing. I'm good. But I don't remember how we got this book, but this was the first book we got. The Enneagram Made Easy by so-and-so and so-and-so. This book, very simple. It's got even like cartoon illustrations in it. And see, it's really easy. And this is maybe the third copy of this book because I give it away. People say, take this book, and then I have to order another one. So the one I had like written up, But anyway, so we opened this up and I started reading this. I started reading like the basic descriptions of all the types, and I knew immediately I was a 7. My son Harrison knew immediately he was a 5. My wife knew immediately she was a 2. Grace thought she was a 7 at first, and then later realized she was an 8. And, my daughter Kaylee thought she was a 2, but she's really a 9-wing 1. And, 9s, she's the sexual type, so she kind of merged with mom a little bit and picked up a lot of that 2 energy. But later we realized, which is not uncommon now, we know that sometimes 9s misidentify. And I think Grace's husband, Zach, thought he was a 1. Guess what? His dad is a 1. So Zach kind of, thought he was a 1. We realized he was a 9. And so this started to like get into my head and create, challenges for me. You guys know what I'm talking about, how it gets in your head. And so one night, my wife Traci and I were watching TV in bed, and we turned on YouTube, and I typed in Enneagram, and there was a video that was broken up. It was hard to follow, but it was a video of Richard Rohr talking about the Enneagram, and all he had was like a chalkboard behind him. And later I found the entire video, and it's like maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours long, and we watched that video, and I just paused it many times as I laughed and thought about people we knew, and it was just eye-opening. I mean, it was amazing. It was like, how do you know this stuff? And then there was this girl on YouTube, Jennifer something, and then she switched her name of her channel to like Jennifer Brave, and she had a few videos on YouTube, and I watched a couple of her videos, and I thought, how does she know this stuff? Like, this is so interesting. How do you learn this stuff? How do you know this stuff? And so I started ordering books, and I started reading. And before I would go to the office in the morning, maybe for an hour or two, like 7 in the morning to 8:30 or something, I would read. And I read these kinds of books. Now, I've got a whole bookshelf over there, but this is the kind of stuff that I was reading, okay? And if you open this book, you're going to see, like, it is marked up from head to toe. Books like this one, books like this one, the hardback books. I was reading, well, this one isn't, but, these significant books, I was reading them one after another. And, I don't know, like 7s, we have that line to 5, but I can feel like this like need to shove information into my head as fast as I can. Like I need to understand this. I need to see the big picture. And I'm an ENFP, so that big picture, I'm trying to learn it as fast as I can. And as I'm learning it, it's working on me. It's working on me, and it's working on, it's coming out of me, and I'm talking about it with people at church, which turns out that's not always a good thing. I'm one of the things that's true about me that I get chills thinking about this, because I don't want to be this way. But then there's another part of me that's fine being this way. One of the things about me is I tend to be a little naive. I tend to think that people are my friends. I tend to think that everybody wants to know information, that everybody's open-minded with open hearts, and they're just not. They're just not. There are some people that they don't want to go beneath the surface, or they don't like this kind of thing. And, whatever. So this stuff is just coming out of me as I'm interacting with people. I'm like, oh, do you know about this? Let me get out a napkin. Let me get out a napkin, Let me get out a napkin. Let me draw it out. Let me talk it out. Naive, right? You think everybody's going to want to know this. Everybody's going to want to understand this. It's a road back to God. It's to help you to understand yourself better. Why wouldn't you want to know this? So anyway, this book came along early in that journey, this road back, the road back to you, and then the other one, The Path Between Us by Susan Stabile. When I read this book, and guys, look, I've gone all the way through. I was in school pretty much nonstop from 5 years old to 39. I think I finished my doctorate at 38 or 39. My goal was to be done by 40. Okay, so barely, I got it done. And then when I was done, I said, hey, family, let's celebrate. Let's go to New York City. And also on the way home, let's stop at the beach. So we went to South Carolina, because South Carolina is obviously on the way home. When you live in Kentucky, obviously you go to New York and then you go to South Carolina to Hilton Head, and then you come home, because that's definitely on the way. But when I read this book, this was one of the most powerful books I ever read. Now, like I said, guys, I've read a ton of books, and powerful, ministry books by John MacArthur and Jerry Bridges and Matt Chandler and David Platt and, all these guys. Francis Chan. I've read all these books, that are exciting and powerful and life-changing. And then I read this, and I was like, man, this thing is... And I realized it's not so much the writer, although Ian Cron's a great writer. It's what he's talking about. It's the Enneagram is so powerful. And if you ask me, Tom, what's your favorite book on the Enneagram? It would be this one by Beatrice Chestnut. I do have an interview of her on my channel, so go back into my videos and you can find that. I've got her other books over there that I read a long time ago. Fantastic books. But this one... If you could only have one book on the Enneagram, I would recommend this one. It's so good I wish I would have written it, but she's a lot smarter than I am. And anyway, so I started reading, I started learning, I started talking. And a little bit, like 7s kind of read to talk. I hate to say that, but that's probably a little true. 7s read to have something to talk about. And I do love learning, and I do love my private time, and I read all kinds of stuff, but it was one after another, one after another, one after another. And my wife, Traci, at some point along the way, she said, Tom, why don't you make like a YouTube channel about this? And I remember thinking, what? I've never made a YouTube channel. I don't know how to do that. And I started making videos, and I had a notebook, and I would write down everything I was learning, and I thought, okay, well, this will be a good way for me to document my learning and keep me accountable. I'll just try to make one video every week. Every Friday, I'll just make a video. I'll study and learn all week, and then I'll make myself accountable by sharing that information on a video so people could benefit from it. Like, learn it and share it, learn it and share it. And that's what I did. I just began doing that. I just began sharing that information on videos. And again, I'm very naive, so I thought, oh, I'll do this in my church office. And in the church, people will see that, and they'll see, my Bible's behind me, and they'll realize I'm a pastor, and the church will be exalted and lifted up. It'll be a good thing for the church and great thing for the people. And so anyway, my old videos are me in my office at the church as a pastor in a little church in Port Orange, Florida. and I'm just telling the world what I'm learning. And, you know, I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what would come of this. I didn't plan. I'm a 7. I'm not a 6. I'm not a 1. I didn't plan anything. I just learned the information and shared it. And I never intended to start a business. I never intended to start a coaching practice, business, ministry. I never intended to do any of that. I just thought people need to understand this. It's so helpful. It's so life-changing. It's so powerful. People need to understand this. And there's going to be people who will never read or never, be able to get the books or hate reading so much. I'll digest the information. I'll just share with people what I'm learning. And, after doing that for several months, it wasn't long before my wife said, why don't you offer appointments to people? Because I was getting all these emails. People were emailing me. They were leaving messages on my videos. They were emailing me from the, and because I think I had my email address in the YouTube description at the time. And people were constantly sending me questions. What about this? What about that? Could you do a video on this? Could you do a video on that? What about this relationship? And my wife said, why don't you start offering appointments for people? And I did. I created a website. I figured out how to use PayPal. I figured out how to use Zoom. I mean, it was all this stuff I had to learn, because anytime you do anything, there's always this big learning curve. And I started to make appointments an option for people. And I had to limit how many appointments I could offer every week because I had a full-time job at a church. But I was overwhelmed with the amount of interest. I was overwhelmed with people booking appointments 2, 3, 4 weeks out in advance. And I don't think it's because my videos they're not well done. Let's face it, I don't spend a lot of time editing and making the videos amazing. I just spend a lot of time talking about the information. And again, it's not so much the writer as it is what we're talking about that is so powerful. It's a powerful sword in the hands of clumsy soldiers like me. And people started to book appointments with me, and I started meeting with them. And I was blown away, guys. I was blown away at you. I was blown away because I was meeting with people all over the world. I have an appointment with somebody in South Africa. The next hour, I have an appointment with somebody in Italy, in Holland, in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all over the United States. And, I would have appointments with people on their back patio in Uruguay, in Ecuador. And we're talking about significant things. It wasn't always easy because as a 7, I tend to be light and surface and positive, and people are unloading the challenges of their life and their marriage problems and all this heavy stuff. I mean, we're beneath the waterline. We're talking about soul things. We're talking about stuff, about what's going on the inside. And, in many of those conversations, I didn't ever push my religious convictions or my religious beliefs on people, because I get it. Not everybody is open or interested, and you've got your reasons. I understand. So I tried to, all throughout this channel, to let you know what my faith is, but I never try to push that faith on people if they're not interested in it, because the Enneagram can be super helpful even if you don't have a Christian worldview. If you're Jewish or Muslim or atheist, or it doesn't matter. The tool itself is used and useful to everyone because I think it aligns with truth. But I think it could definitely uncover some things that are going to be of a spiritual nature. And then that starts you down a road. It starts you down a spiritual journey. I even have a course called the Enneagram and Spirituality, as well as one on Enneagram and Christian life. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to move you toward the Christian faith, but it could. It certainly could. And there are many, many, many times in those coaching appointments where the subject of faith and God and Jesus and heaven and all these things came up. And I was amazed at how many times people were asking me about those questions of faith. And, you know, somewhere along the way, I realized if I had the opportunity to share with someone for an hour, I think I would start with the Enneagram. Like I could get to Jesus, and I will if that person would let me. But even if I can't get to Jesus, just talking about the Enneagram is going to start to move them beneath the surface to soul and spiritual stuff. And then once you realize you have the disease, because every type is broken, you got to start to look for a remedy. And I don't think the Enneagram shows us that we don't need a savior. I think it shows us that all of us are broken and in need of a savior. But that's my personal convictions, okay? What do you mean everybody's broken? Well, let me give an example. In my appointments, I remember coaching a lady who was an 8, and she was my age or older, and she was an 8, wing 7, and she, you know, had been recently divorced. I think it was maybe her second or third marriage, and she was just kind of in that 5 place, you know, of like, what am I supposed to do, Tom? I could never be with a 9. I can't be with somebody who won't take their life seriously, I could never be with a 1. I could never be with... She went around the dial. I just let her do it. She went around the dial and told me why she couldn't be with every one of these types until she got to 8. And then she realized, like, she backed herself into a corner, and she was like, I could never be with an 8. And so she went around the dial, and basically what she was recognizing is every type has their problems, right? We're all like superheroes, but we all have our kryptonite. Every type has its strengths, and then, you know, of course, we overplay those strengths, and they become weaknesses, and every type is ruined. Every type has a problem. There's something wrong with everything. There's something wrong with every one of us. You know, and over the years, people have been critical of my channel. Gosh, Tom, you're so negative. You're so negative. All you do is point out the weaknesses or the challenges. Why don't you ever talk about the strengths? And I think I do, but I guess I'm more interested in what's wrong and highlighting that so that when you see it, you know, that maybe you could not let your shortcomings or your weaknesses destroy your life. And maybe I do skew a little bit toward, let me point out the problem. I don't know. But long story short is, you know, now here I am some years later, and I've had a lot of appointments with people. Well over 1,000, maybe over 2,000. I don't know. I don't keep track. I could go back on my calendar and I could count them all because I have to keep it all on my calendar. But lots and lots of appointments with lots and lots of people. And man, what a blessing. What a blessing. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. I'll get done with 3 or 4 appointments and I'll come out and my wife will say, how are your appointments? I'm like, life-changing stuff, man. Life-changing stuff. Now, they're not all like that. I mean, there's some where people just need support. And there's some appointments where I don't know that I really offer a lot of information. I don't know that they're really making an appointment with me because they want information. Sometimes people are just in a crisis and they don't know who to talk to, or they don't have somebody to talk to, and they just want to download everything that's going on in their life. And they're basically looking at you to say, like, I'm not crazy, right? And you're like, no, you're not crazy. What you're thinking makes sense. I understand. I'm sorry you're at where you're at. And I try to offer whatever insight I can, but sometimes people don't let me talk. You know, you get with those extroverts like me, and they just talk. And they almost need me to be like an introvert who just listens, who just makes space and listens to them. But there's been many times where, you know, I've had the opportunity to help somebody see something about themselves that wasn't obvious to them, or see something about their relationship that wasn't obvious to them. And, you know, I can remember another 8 one time who kept turning her camera off. She started the appointment like this. All right, what is this Enneagram thing anyway? All right, so I booked this appointment. I don't even know what this is, why. I don't even know why I did this. And, you know, she was just... Anyway, so I just started talking about 8s. Well, 8s, you know, and I talked about the vulnerability, and her camera went off. Zoom, we're on Zoom, right? Her camera goes off. And then it comes back on in a couple of minutes, and I kept talking, and then it went off again. And I kept talking, and it came back on. It did it like 3 times, and finally I said, is there something wrong with your camera? Because she muted herself and shut her camera off. She was crying. as I was just talking about the basics of what a type 8 is, she was moved to tears, and she didn't want me to see her. She didn't want me to see or know she was crying. It's like, wow, this thing is so powerful. You know, what a tremendous opportunity to... This has given me the opportunity to talk into people's lives all over the world. I can't be more happy. I can't be more fulfilled. I can't be more excited. And it's not just the Enneagram. It's not like I've turned away from my Christian convictions or my faith to this instead. I see this as being foundational stuff that then leads us onward in our spiritual journey, so that we seek the answers that maybe are only provided by other answers. So I've learned a lot from talking to people. You know, yes, I kind of did my coursework where I for a couple of years read everything I could read. And I still read about the Enneagram. I still read, and I still bring videos based on what I'm reading. But the reading has slowed down a little bit. And, you know, when you have, for example, 400 appointments with 9s, 500 appointments, I don't know how many appointments I've had with 9s, a lot of appointments with 9s. I've had a lot of appointments with 4s, a lot of appointments with 1s. You know, when you have 300, 400, 500 appointments with an Enneagram type, and they share their story, you start to see patterns, okay? You start to see similarities, and you start to realize from those stories, you start to realize that there are certain problems or challenges that this type has. And I've learned a ton from the books, but you know, I've learned a ton from just talking to people, just doing classes. And then in every one of my live classes, we have opportunity at the end of each session to just have discussion and just talk about it. So we'll do an hour of information or 45 minutes of information, and then we'll do 20, 30 minutes of discussion about that information. And to see, you know, 15, 20 students interact and talk, and they've all got their types, you know, on the screen and sharing their insights, and then doing one appointment after another with people from all over the world, from different cultures and different backgrounds. And you start to learn the Enneagram by practice. And now, you know, it's almost, you know, you watch television shows and I'm typing people. I watch movies, I'm typing people, typing characters, and then talking about that with my family, talking about that with my kids. And we just did a class at church on a small group on the Enneagram. And I realized that it's better to do this in a small group than it is to do it across the whole congregation, because not everybody is interested in personality stuff, and some people are even suspicious of it. And I had one of the ladies in our small group who's been coming every week. Every week we talk about a different type, you know, and I had a lady in that group just shake her head, you know, in about the 6th or 7th week, and she was like, I don't want to learn this. I'm so frustrated. Because now she's seeing it. She sees it in herself. She sees it in her kids. She sees it in the people she meets. She's seeing it, you know, and she stayed through the whole study. She wants to learn it, but she's starting to feel that frustration that comes from understanding and knowing this. You know, and then when you understand this and you try to share it with somebody, sometimes it's forbidden knowledge to them because they're not open, they're not interested. So, what am I saying here? I don't know. You know what? It's funny. I've got notes. I literally printed off stuff I wanted to talk about, and I don't think I've looked at it once. But it was good for me to process, you know, talking about it. Or before I talked about it, it was good for me to kind of write out my thoughts. I think some of the things I've learned the hard way, you know, is when you actually work with people, when you try to apply, and realize, guys, that was always my intention, was this is great information, but how do you apply it? Like, how does this help? How does this help my life? How does it help my marriage? How does it help me be a better dad? How does it help me in my work? How does it help people have better lives? That's always been the lens I see this through. I know some of the stuff is very dusty and metaphysical and it doesn't relate to life. I've always been like very practical, maybe a little too practical, a little too pragmatic. But how does knowing this make your life better? That's always been my focus. The practical aspect of this. And I think in metaphors, metaphors can be so helpful sometimes. But one of the things I've learned from coaching so many people and having so many conversations with people is there's a lot of variety within types. So you meet a person who's a 7 and you meet another person who's a 7. There will be some similarities and their motivations are the same. Okay, I get it. The core motivations are the same. But there is a wide variety among people within a certain type. So there's a lot of different 9s, okay? And just because you think you understand 9s from a textbook perspective, actual people are much more complex. So the books are so helpful because they give you the basic concepts. But when you actually sit down with 100 people who are type 9s, you're going to find a lot of differences, a lot of variety, a lot of uniqueness, and it's going to challenge what you think you know about that type. You're going to be like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting this 9 to be so confrontational or so challenging, because aren't 9s supposed to be easy to get along with? And so there's a huge variety. Subtypes is a big part of that. Tri-types is probably a big part of that. And then life experience and trauma and just what's been done to people. Let's face it, the world is rough, man. And there's a lot of stress and trauma and PTSD and lots of labels, ADHD and narcissistic abuse, and I mean there's all kinds of, and then you got all the attachment styles, and I mean there's all kinds of levels and layers that make working with people complex. But my encouragement to you is to continue learning, continue growing, watching videos like this or listening to podcasts. There's so many great teachers out there now in the Enneagram. There wasn't when I started. I mean, there were some books, but there wasn't any YouTube channels, like 1 or 2. There wasn't a lot of podcasts. And now I'm just thrilled and amazed at how many voices are out there. And then I'm also amazed at how many people still don't know about this. Like when we go to Disney World, for example, we live in Daytona Beach. So whenever we go to Disney World, a lot of times I'll wear an Enneagram shirt, it'll have a picture of the Enneagram on it. It'll say something like 7s are more fun or whatever. And I'm amazed that like people have no idea what the Enneagram is. They just don't know. And so many times I'll see people who are just like stuck in their personality, and I'm like, man, I wish I could sit down and talk to you because I could challenge you. I could really help you. But I imagine all, chiropractors probably feel the same way when they see somebody all hunched over. They're like, I can help that person. Well, we get hunched over in our personality profiles. We get hunched over in our patterns and our behaviors, and a lot of them aren't working for us, by the way. A lot of them are not working for us. And once we see it, once we have our eyes open, we can then choose a better path or a different path or different options than our impulses and compulsions drive us to choose. Helping people get back in charge of their lives. Helping people get back in the game, back in charge of their marriage and back, fully engaged in their lives. What a great work. What a fantastic work. I'm thrilled to be able to do this. I don't know how long it will keep going. I really don't. I never set out to do this as a business. I never did. Honestly. And I don't know what the future holds. But thank you guys for making this a possibility. Thank you guys for your support. Thank you for your Patreon support. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do any of this. I've gotten to go places I never would have gone before. Got to do conferences and leadership trainings for organizations that want their staff to get along better. Probably they're having some trouble and they want their staff to get along better. And so they'll bring me in to do a training. And I never charge the right amount of money. It's not about the money. It honestly is never about the money. I can't tell you how many people I've had reach out to me over the years. Tom, you need to take it to the next level and you should charge $10,000 for your... I'm like, maybe, but I'm not going to do that. I've really wrestled with what to charge, and recently I just cut the prices on everything. I'm like, you know what? The economy stinks. People are having a hard time. And after all, I'm a pastor. It's never been about money. It's always been about helping people. It's been about pointing people back to who they are and who created them and all of that. It's always been about ministry. But I can't tell you how many people, I can take your channel. Let me take all your videos and let me redo them all. I'm like, I'm just not interested in that stuff. I get it. There's a place for it. But YouTube is filled with how to make a lot of money as a coach. It's not me. It's not my channel. It's not what I do. I'm not going to train you how to make a lot of money. I'm going to train you how to help people, how to understand and get beneath the surface and really pull the rug out from under people. Not to necessarily build them up, but to challenge. Pull the rug out from under them and let them realize, like, my house is built on sand. Like, the things that feel right to me, if I go with all those impulses, it's going to ruin my life. And I need to see that. I need to see beneath the curtain or beneath the surface. So, I don't know. I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can. I'm going to keep bringing you information. I'm going to keep making videos. I'm going to keep offering coaching appointments and programs. I'm going to keep offering classes. I'm going to keep writing ebooks. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And if you'll invite me, I would love to come to your part of the world. For as low a cost as I can, I'd love to come to your part of the world because I'm a 7. I want to see the world. And I've gotten to see some amazing places I never would have gone before. And I love people. And I think the Enneagram should be practical and useful and helpful. And it should make people work better and work together better and have better marriages and have better lives and understand their value. Not because of what they do, but because of whose image they're made in, and to treat people with value. Some clients I've had for a long time. Some people just come for one appointment. Whatever. I'm here. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. As long as God wakes me up in the morning, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you, guys. I don't know why I made this video. I just felt like, let me just tell you what's going on. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for caring about all this. And as always, be present to life. I'll see you next time.